Then question 5B required that the candidate should explain 5 techniques that could be applied for successful negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement, and this question had 5 marks. So question 5B, explain 5 techniques that could be used that could be applied for successful negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement. So this question has 5 marks. It is important, before we tackle the question, to be able to look at the aspect of negotiation. So a negotiation is an engagement where parties come together to have a round table discussion, and there are stakes in that particular kind of a negotiation where there is give and take, there is trading of ideas, and also agreements that are supposed to be done. So in an HR environment or human resource environment, a collective bargaining process in most cases involves the employees and the employer, and by extension, employees, trade unions representing the interests of employer, employees, and the management has a team that represents the management, and they discuss and come to an agreement on aspects of mutual interest for purposes of workers' welfare within that particular organization. Now, the question requires that the candidate should explain 5 techniques that could be applied for successful negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement. The first technique that the parties are supposed to be able to agree on in order to have successful negotiation is to have a control of the agenda of negotiations. So what this means is that those who are negotiating should have an agenda that they agree on, the aspects of mutual interest, and they should be able to agree that this particular agenda they are having will be honored, and they will be able to follow the negotiations so that both parties have a win-win situation in that area, and so on. Secondly, argumentation. It is important that when parties are in a collective bargaining process, the kind of arguments that are provided should be supported with ideas, should be supported with statistics, so that they can elicit arguments or ideas that can be used in this particular process. Instead of the process going out of hand, there should be facts, there should be ideas, and this argumentation can ensure that this process proceeds, and the organization, in the context of the collective bargaining process, they are able to sign an agreement of mutual benefit to move the process forward. And then thirdly, documentation. It is important that organizations that are in a collective bargaining agreement document whatever proceedings that they are going through. Once these proceedings are documented, and parties should have copies of documents, all documents, to ensure that no particular party will argue that they have been shortchanged. And through this documentation process, the parties involved are able to have a clear picture where no cards are being left unturned or others are being hidden below the table, to ensure that the collective bargaining agreement that is agreed on does not have gray areas where disputes may again arise in relation to some aspects that may not have been known to all the parties involved. It is also important that you have a situation where you have a caucus, in the sense that the parties involved in this negotiation process should be able to agree that in case you have Party A and Party B, when Part A seem to be having an agreement, a disagreement on aspects relating to their part of the bargain, that part, whether it is Part A or Part B, can request for some time out. And this time out that is requested is supposed to enable these parties who are involved to be able to iron out their issues and have one specific arrangement for the part, another specific arrangement, so that whichever party is negotiating agree on aspects relating to their interests together, instead of disputing as a party on the bargaining table. And in that way, it will be possible to have a successful negotiation where the parties agree on matters of mutual interest, and they are able to have arrangements in relation to the agreement for that and so on. So this is the response for our question, and it is also important that when it comes to successful negotiations, one of the most important aspects that should never be left out is supposed to be the aspect of ground rules. Ground rules. It is important that in a collective bargaining agreement, the parties, for instance, agree that when it will come, for instance, to aspects like communication, there should only be one party or one person designated to provide communication from the team that is conducting the negotiation process, so that there are no conflicting there's no conflicting information that is going out to the stakeholders, which can bring problems in terms of misunderstandings. So once ground rules are set, all the parties in the negotiating process, whether it is Part A or Part B, they should commit themselves to agree that they will only have one voice, they will only have one channel of communicating, and once the ground rules that have been set are adhered to, it is possible that an organization can have successful negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement for the mutual satisfaction of the needs of the parties involved. So the question required that the candidate explain 5 techniques that could be applied for successful negotiation, and we have looked at these techniques where we are saying that the parties should be in control of the agenda. Argumentation should basically be advanced based on facts and ideas. There should be documentation of the proceedings where the parties involved have copies of all this information. Then a caucus can be allowed to allow parties keep their house in order when it comes to the negotiations to be able to make progress. And the ground rules that are set should be able to outline clearly aspects like communication from the bargaining teams to ensure that there is no conflict to the outside environment. So these are 5 aspects that are supposed to be looked at in terms of sample answers for the question 5B.